Hey everyone, this is Jenny here, doing my post on the last chapter of the book, chapter 12, The Work to Do. And this chapter was completely appropriate for what lies ahead for us in the future, now and in the future. So the chapter opens, and it was just like 10 days before the election, and there was talk about Burks, who had contacted Slavitt, and it said that she had failed to convince the president about the virus. So we all know that every single effort on all sides, all aspects, failed to reach the president. But the author was concerned, about Burks and whether or not she had felt a sense of failure or felt like she had done everything that she could do. There was a quote in there that said, "Fighting this virus and Scott Atlas together is the hardest thing I've had to do." Though any number of names could have easily been used to convey this meaning, because it wasn't just one person, but many anti-virus, this is a hoax type people that were, fighting against what we needed to do to be able to eradicate this virus. He said that he saw a lot of emotions from her, sunny and hopeful, compliant and silent, creative and strategic. I mean, she was the one that went out there. She toured the country and put herself out there and tried to educate people and, make a difference when it comes to beating the higher powers, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. And they were worried because around Thanksgiving, they felt like the holiday was being referred to as the 35 million super spreader of events, because people are going to want to gather. And then the next part of the chapter goes into the Soviet-launched Hunter warfare program, and how its aim was to combine DNA from multiple organisms capable of mass death if released into the USA. So part of me was like, okay, where is the author going with this? And basically, he's saying that and this goes into like the second part of the reading from the panel, the COVID-19 independent panel, is that, we need to use this experience to be able to prepare for what could happen, again, what is inevitable to happen in the future, because this isn't just a fluke. In the book, it had mentioned about how things are going to change, especially with climate change and cross-interacting with like different habitats and things like that. I mean, there is just going to be an increased risk for another pandemic to come and hit us that we're not prepared for. And then Slavitt goes on to discuss about the reform part of the chapter, where there's the N appendix of reform, and that it will never happen unless we facilitate change. Doesn't really do them any good to just talk about every single one of them, because let's just put it in appendix, because if we don't facilitate change, which is step number one, then we are not going to get past this. We need to learn to sacrifice a little bit so that we can gain a lot. We can't be selfish and say, oh, well, such and such is not going to happen in our lifetime because, I have children. Some of you have children or may have children in the future, and you're also looking out for what is in their future as well. So to me, this these topics are extremely relevant and extremely important. And we need to do whatever possible to keep Americans safe, and we need to learn to look out for each other and not for ourselves. And that speaks volumes when it comes to how are we going to tackle what we've learned in this entire program, the graduate program, about the inequities that exist within our country today. It is so sad to me that people struggle to be able to put meals on their tables while other people are, out in lakes on their yachts and such. It's just so much inequity that occurs, and no wonder why we have such poor health outcomes and spend so much money on treating chronic illness when we can just give people the access that they need and the education that they deserve to have a good chance at a better outcome. Furthermore, with regard to the pandemic or COVID, we need to engage in more efforts towards preparedness. What are we going to do? How are we going to prepare? The chapter talked about, well, no doubt we'll probably have enough PPE in the future, but, what else? What else could happen? We need to look back, and we need to really put our efforts towards what can we prepare for in the future, because even if we don't anticipate all that could happen, at least we have some level of preparedness in place, and that is super important. A society renewed, once we get past this, and even currently, we're having extensive grief over lives lost, businesses lost, children missing normal school years, graduations, proms, things like that. These are things that we are going to have to cope with and make sure that if it's within our control, that it does not happen again. So it was very appropriate when the author stated, there's no choice, we will just need to win. One thing I want to mention is that the pandemic has taught us how to be creative with communication. We've all talked about how we've done Zoom, and, there's provision of telehealth services, online meetings and such. Could this be an avenue to somehow provide access to people who who don't have transportation? Can we continue to use telehealth? What is going to happen? And the opening remarks to the panel discussion was that this pandemic is just a sign of how vulnerable and fragile our world really is, and definitely has shone a light on the inequities that are deeply rooted within our society today. And this is an absolute threat to our health and well-being as a society. If we fail to have a goal and to take prevention or preparedness measures, I think that there could be a world of trouble in the future. This virus seems so nasty, and that it's never going to end, but, there could be a worse one out there that we're just not aware of. So let's prepare ahead of time. And I think that we've learned a lot about the importance of and the value of healthcare workers, frontline workers, scientists, advocates of trying to get control of this virus, people who stepped up when they didn't have to. Just a lot of heroes that were mentioned within the book. And let's see. The panel had also mentioned how COVID-19 has shown us an infectious disease can sweep the globe in weeks, and in the space of a few months, set back sustainable development by years. There's so much that has changed and altered the way that we live and what we do just in what seems like the blink of an eye. So it is vital that that we try to work on that preparedness, like some of the panel recommendations or talks about, you know, providing more like equitable distribution of, you know, vaccines and being able to track things and maybe have this playbook that is necessary. Like, you know, maybe we should make a playbook regarding what had happened and what strategies that we're going to use in order to combat something that could happen in the future. So, and I totally agree with the author and kind of his stance, well, and the panel that if we don't initiate change and take this seriously, we're not going to be in a good position whatsoever in the future. And like I said, I don't know if another pandemic will happen in my lifetime, but I don't really care because it could happen in anyone's lifetime. And to me, that is what matters the most. So, great book. I loved watching everyone's posts throughout the semester, and I will look forward to watching everyone's initial post to this chapter. Thank you.